Facebook, and we'll send it out to the listserv. So, a little bit about Community, Local, and Regional Food Systems. We're a national extension foundation project team, and we offer a platform to share resource materials and training opportunities and to foster peer interactions for extension educators, community-based practitioners, and just individuals involved in work related to building sustainable, equitable, and just food systems. We're comprised of over 400 extension professionals, university researchers, and food systems practitioners from across the country. And the Extension Foundation is a national organization that partners with cooperative extension system, and it helps extension professionals generate greater local impact through nationally funded programs made possible by member dollars and cooperative agreements with federal agencies, and through partnering on state, regional, and national initiatives. It provides professional development to extension professionals and offers exclusive services to its members. And it's an educational partner with over 50 land-grant universities in the United States, but serves all land-grant universities regardless of membership status. And so this is our leadership. Dr. Leong is the leader of the Community, Local, and Regional Food Systems, and she's out of NCA&T. And my name's Katie Himes, and I do media outreach and administrative stuff for the Community, Local, and Regional Food Systems group. And Kathleen and I are both volunteers. Oh. Okay. So resources we offer include these quarterly open forums, our Facebook page, and our website. And we receive WordPress support through the Extension Foundation to host our website. And on that website, I can upload research results and links to your projects and pages, and open forum recordings and slides will be there too after this, as I already said. But our primary resource for our members is the Google Group listserv, and you can contact me if you want to be added to the Google Group. Just email me at katiew@uark.edu. And once you're in the group, anyone can post to it. It doesn't have to be just me. So today we have Dar Wolnik, Laura Witzling, and Bret Shaw to present. So I'm going to turn it over to you, and you can introduce yourselves.
Super. Well, thank you. Yeah. So I'll let Laura and Dar introduce themselves. So my name is Bret Shaw, and I am a professor at the University of Wisconsin-Madison in life science communication. I also have an 80% appointment with Extension, where I support different local food systems and environmental initiatives. So what we're going to be sharing with you today is a project for a grant that we got, and we're partnering with the Farmers Market Coalition to look at ways to use data to more effectively promote farmers markets. So if you could go to the next slide. So yeah, so to get things started, why isn't this working, Laura? Oh, there we go.
Is it the arrow?
There.
Okay.
All right.
Awesome.
Yeah. So first I wanted to say, and I think everyone on this phone call knows this, is that farmers markets aren't just places for transactions, for the buying and selling of food. They influence our communities. And like sometimes when people think about their local farmers market, they don't realize like what a large scale that they have in the United States. I've heard debating numbers, but one of the ones that we're using right now is that there's more than 8,600. Some people say that's low, but that's more than all the Walmarts and Sam's Clubs nationwide combined. Granted, they're not as large, but they are an important part of our local food landscape. So this grant that we got was intended to support small and medium-sized farms, and again, to underscore that we see farmers markets as places that foster community and social interactions, cultural celebrations, civic engagement, like registering to vote or connecting with local organizations. So again, our foundational question, what we'll be sharing with you today, is based on what we've learned, is how can we use evidence-based strategies to grow the customer base and increase revenue for farmers market vendors and operators. So we hope that this will be useful as you all support the farmers market managers in your respective communities. So that's it. I'm going to pass it off to Dar, who's going to provide a little additional feedback or a background. So thanks, Dar.
Thanks, Bret. As Bret said, my name is Darlene Wolnik. I am the Senior Program Manager at Farmers Market Coalition, which hopefully you all know is the national advocate and clearinghouse for farmers markets in the U.S. We were founded by farmers markets and farmers markets partners way back in really 2004. But we became a separate 501c3 around 2006. And so we've really been in the present form we are since then. And we are an entirely remote organization. Our staff has always been spread far and wide across the U.S. So our focus is to collect and create resources for farmers markets, to create facilitation opportunities for markets to connect to each other or to funders or to policymakers, and to provide some analysis of the sector, both in partnership with farmers markets, but also with helping with partners like Extension. And so the focus for Farmers Market Coalition in terms of this project was something that we wanted to build on that we'd already seen in the US, which was that the farmers markets, as Bret has pointed out, are more than 8,600 sites, that we've already seen a huge culture of data collection begin really right around 2008, 2009, although really from the very earliest organizational, we were always seeing markets collect data. Many of you may know of the DOT survey, the Rapid Market Assessment Tool, started by Oregon State, Gary Stevenson. That was in existence since 1999 or so. And markets were collecting data at some point all along the way. But we started to really see that markets overall were just starting to realize that they had access to a lot of different data points that they could collect easily and that they could share out. So that was something that, as we saw it at FMC, we decided, well, let's make sure that we can support that. So really since 2010 or so, we have focused on finding and collecting resources or creating resources, including a list of metrics that we've created of markets, what markets have collected and are collecting and using to show all these different impacts that they are achieving. Obviously, we all know the economic impacts and, of course, farmland preservation and conservation, but also things like social capital and connections made, and, of course, program level impacts. You can find out a lot about that on Farmers Market Coalition's evaluation resources page, which is if you just go to the farmersmarketcoalition.org and go under resources, you'll see the evaluation resource page, and you can look at some of the templates that we created for markets to help them collect data. Next slide. Go back one. There you go. That's right. Now, the what's so interesting about this project, besides the fact that we were, given help to figure out more ways for markets to collect and use data, was also that Bret and Laura saw the need to help figure out a way to tie this into a toolkit we already had in existence, which is our National Farmers Market Week toolkit. Every year since 2001 or so, not every year since, there's been some years that it hasn't been designated. But National Farmers Market Week is always the first full week of August. And that is something that has always been utilized by the USDA and a few others, but really had not done much with it until FMC decided, well, this was something we could actually spend a lot of time creating resources and engaging markets and creating more messaging around the work they do. And so we really started to populate the idea of National Farmers Market Week around 2010. And we create a toolkit, and that is on our website, and it's available to every year to markets. Anyone else that wants to download it, it's not behind a paywall of any kind. It's just all we do is collect email so we can see who is downloading and how many downloads we get. And we utilize that toolkit to tell people how to collect data and use data. So examples like you're going to hear in this project are going to be added to this toolkit in the ad purchase kind of different guide site area we're going to put into it. So this is a way for all of the sites out there to be able to collect more data. But it's also true that FMC also does its own messaging campaign. And so we are very busy all the way throughout the year, but especially during National Farmers Market Week, carrying and presenting messages through our media sites. And our engagement is well into the millions and the tens of millions of views and engagements and shares. It's pretty phenomenal. We get a lot of requests for interviews at that time. And so this kind of data-driven messaging really helps us to do that. And of course, now we have the added benefit of having a worldwide partner. The World Farmers Market Coalition was founded just a few years back, and we have been part of that organization since it began. And so they have taken on the idea of our National Farmers Market Week and added their own versions of it. And actually this year we just helped them create a new campaign called Farmers Markets Count. Well, they'll be collecting data all over the world and using it to talk about markets impacts in all these areas. So all of this is showing how markets are not just putting up the tents, plugging in the machine and going. They're really trying to make sure that they are measuring and telling a story that as the markets get more and more complex and how they're built and how they're designed, we want to make sure that markets can tell the story, but also make sure that it's really a strategic opportunity. And so that's why this project was so incredible for FMC to be able to join. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Bret.
You're muted. There you go.
Yeah, so what we'll be talking about again is the national survey that we ran, which is really the first survey for quite a number of years that is a nationally representative survey about farmers markets, a series of social media message tests that we ran with 12 different markets in 6 different states that were part of our advisory board, and then a preview of the additions that we're making to the farmers market communication toolkit. And so with that, Laura is going to talk a bit about the survey.
Thank you, Bret. And I'll just quickly introduce myself. I've been working on this project as a research consultant for the Farmers Market Coalition, and I've been doing research with Bret probably for over 10 years now. Yeah. So it's been wonderful to work on this. Okay, so we're going to dive into the survey and just quickly let you know the goals of this survey were to come up with resources that are rooted in these data-driven strategies to inform that toolkit that Dar talked about, and also to help us plan the social media test that Bret is going to talk about. So to develop the survey, we looked at lots of previous surveys that were focused on farmers markets to get an idea of questions to ask. We wanted to have some similar questions so we could compare, and also to add some novel questions. And then we had a team of advisors look at those to see if they're, had suggestions or things that were missing. I see some of those advisors here in this webinar, so thanks for being here. And we had many advisors also from state farmers market associations. We partnered with the National Opinion Research Center, or NORC. NORC is based at the University of Chicago, and they were great to work with because they specialize in getting survey responses from people who tend to be underrepresented in surveys. So for example, young people. They have a big panel of survey respondents ready to go so that they can get these nearly national representative results. So they administer that in August of 2023. I'm going to hit the highlights, the key findings, but if you want a more in-depth look, we're very excited to share that we just had an article published in the Journal of Agriculture, Food Systems, and Community Development. So this is where you can get a deep dive on the results. It's online, it's free, so please feel free to download that if you want more. Okay, so we're going to dive in now, look at results. We had 5,141 respondents. It's a large sample size, which we wanted because we wanted to make sure if we did some examining certain segments of respondents afterward, we'd have sort of a big enough numbers within those segments to have some meaningful results. And we did find that among the respondents, we did get that nearly national representative look. So for example, a lot of racial and ethnic representation among the survey respondents that matched what you'd expect for US demographics. There were some limitations to that, though. So I just do want to mention that we know that Asian respondents were proportionally underrepresented. So that was one limitation. We found that 80% of our respondents go to a farmer's market. And I want to unpack that a little bit. We came to that conclusion looking at 3 different survey questions. So to be in that 80%, respondents had to say, yes, I go to a farmer's market, to 3 different survey questions that were all worded a little differently. So we feel good about that statistic. And within that 80%, we know that there are some differences with how often people go. About 40% of them go more frequently, like 6 or more times a year, and then 40% go less frequently. And so one thing that I think worked well for us in this survey is that we asked the questions in a way to be inclusive of people that don't go very often. So we could take a look at those less frequent visitors also. I see something in the chat. I'm just going to check for a second if these are questions. Okay, I think we're good, but feel free to ask questions if you want. Another thing we found was that the most commonly purchased items at farmers markets were fruits and veggies. Almost 90% of people. Oh, sorry. I did want to say one more thing about diversity. Let me back up for a second. Another thing we found when we were, oh no, I am on the right slide. Fruits and veggies.
I thought, okay.
All right, technical difficulties. Okay, we found fruits and veggies were the most commonly purchased items. And we also found that people tend to do more things, not just shopping at the farmer's market. So in the next slide, we'll kind of go over what some of those activities are. And then another thing that we found was that the people at farmers markets, that 80%, really diverse in terms of age, gender, race, ethnicities. So the takeaway there was that farmers markets are for everyone. That being said, we did see some trends that pop up in other research. For example, you may have heard that women are more likely to attend farmers markets than men. And we did see that also, but it wasn't like this overwhelming trend. So if you can just imagine like a gender breakdown among that 80% of people that go to farmers markets, 52% were female. But like among people that don't go to farmers markets, it was 45%. So we did see the trends, but again, just a lot of diversity in who's going. And so we were excited to think about how farmers markets are just attracting people all across the board. Okay, so here is the chart that I mentioned about all of the different kinds of activities that people are doing at farmers markets. So on the survey, people could say, yes, I do this. No, I don't do this. And these proportions are just among that 80% that we're identifying as people that do go to farmers markets. Almost half of people are saying that they spend time with friends and family, showing that going to a farmers market can be a social event. There's a lot of learning happening at farmers markets, 41% learning about food. And there's some other items about learning here also. 25% learning about growing food, 14% learning about cooking. 29% said they met a new person, which is really interesting, just thinking about sort of current discussions about social isolation, that farmers markets might be a way people are even expanding their social networks. And then there were some other items that were done less frequently, but are still meaningful. 12% made a friend. 11% posted a photo to social media about the farmers market. And that one stood out to us because we think there's just a lot of room to maybe grow that, to get attendees involved in helping to promote their farmers markets. 10% got new ideas about businesses. 4% got voting information. So there's this civic engagement connection. 3% got some kind of health service, like a blood pressure check or a vaccine. And then only 19% of people said, no, I don't do any of these other things. So the takeaway there is that there's just lots of opportunities for community connections and partnerships at farmers markets. Okay, here's what farmers markets attendees said about the impacts of farmers markets. 75% said they're eating healthier because they go. 67% said they're looking for local products in stores, just showing this broader economic impact that farmers markets can have. And also connected to that, like on market day, 49% said that they shop at nearby retail and 42% eat at a nearby restaurant. We also saw that almost half of the attendees were saying that they make connections with organizations or people in the community, and half also said that they actually save money by shopping at farmers markets. We're going to dive into motivations for going to farmers markets now. The top reason was getting fresh food, followed by supporting local farmers, accessing high quality food, doing something fun, and eating healthier. And these trends are things that have been shown in other research also. So it was nice to see that consistency. One additional thing we saw that was among the younger respondents, they were relatively more interested in having the fun and also the environmental sustainability aspect. So later when Bret talks about the social media portion, you'll see how these motivations got translated into those ads. Here are some barriers. The top barrier was forgetting about farmers markets. And so that forgetting hasn't necessarily been something that I've seen widely studied before. Other surveys sometimes ask about awareness, which might certainly be related to forgetting, but these results suggest that people might know there's a farmers market, but they just forget to go. Other barriers were perceived high prices, crowds, location, parking. So another thing about these results, we focus on that forgetting and one of the strategies for the social media ad that Bret will also share about how we tried to address that. And one more thing to mention is that we did have some questions about convenience, and we were interested in some of these like convenience options that some farmers markets offer. And we did see some interest in meal kits with 23% saying they were quite or very interested in that. Buying prepared meals at the market, and 20% interested in those meal kits. And from another survey question, we know that the younger farmers market attendees are interested in learning more about cooking. So those meal kits might be one strategy to try to bring them in. That is a wrap on the survey data. I am going to pass it back to Bret now.
Okay, so this work here?
Yeah, I think if you click there or the arrow.
All right, thank you, Laura. And actually, Laura is going to have to leave before the very end. And so do you want to pause for a moment if there are any questions, or should we just keep moving on the survey?
I see one thing in chat. I don't know if it's a question, but also if you have questions later, we are happy to, okay, it's not a question. Someone said it was interesting. Thank you.
Thanks.
If you guys think of questions later, feel free to reach out to us. And like I mentioned, there's a lot more detail in that article in Jackson.
All right, great. Thanks.
Can I interject here? Dawn did ask how to attribute if they share the slides with stakeholders.
I don't, Adara, like, I'd be curious what you think. I don't know if we like, why don't we chat about that after?
We can add an attribution and we'll put it
Okay.
on the slide before we share it. Excited to hear people want to share the slides.
Yeah, thank you.
Yay.
All right. So using the results from the surveys, one of the things that we wanted to try out was a lot of Facebook pages, if you look at them, only post organically. And anybody that's managing a social media account, like a Facebook or Instagram account, has seen that the trend over time is for, if let's say you have 1,000 followers, I'm an administrator on a lot of different accounts, because a lot of times you might be reaching, not like reaching 5%, 10%. If people are sharing it a lot, it can go up quite a bit. But we wanted to test how to use a paid Facebook and Instagram ads to see how different messages would resonate with different target audiences. So just really quickly, this is the only theory in my presentation, but if for those of you who aren't familiar with this idea of message framing, it's a common concept that we use in communication, and it's very simple, which is that how information is conveyed influences people's attitudes and behavior. So you can see here that one example that is commonly used is like that a biodiversity loss can be seen as a serious environmental problem, but biodiversity could also be seen as a serious economic problem. So it's basically what part of the message do you emphasize? They can all be true, but which messages resonate most with the general target audience and then different subsets of it. And the success of that, of course, will vary depending on the audience's worldview and that kind of thing. So let me share with you what we did. So the basic research questions, and I'll show you the ads in just a moment, are which ads are most effective in getting Facebook and Instagram users to express interest in attending a farmer's market, and how do event response rates vary by age and gender. So one of the things that I'll be showing you here in just a second, well, right now actually, is because we said that the top barrier that we found was that people said that they forget about going to the farmer's market. Well, when you set up like ads on Facebook, for example, one of the outcomes you can do is to set up a reminder. So you like, yes, I would like to be reminded about this event. So we set up these ads using the 4 top motivations for going to the farmer's market. In the survey, we had fresh and healthy as separate, but conceptually they were similar enough that we combined them. Fun, which showed up, supporting local farmers, and sustainable food. I want to show you the anatomy of a Facebook ad if you haven't thought about it this way. But so we're working here again with 12 different markets in 6 different states. 11 markets participated in this particular study. But you can see like the name of the market. You'll notice that on a message test that all of them have a similar artistic style and fonts. And that is because we're not trying to test design executions. We're trying to test concepts. So then you can link to the Facebook page and so on. So I'll keep it a pretty high level here, but we ran this last summer in July, and we split $5,000 equally amongst 11 different markets. And the states that participated were Alaska, Colorado, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Illinois, Vermont. Each of the ad campaigns ran for 1 week, ending on the day of the market. This particular ad campaign, where people were receiving basically ads to click on a reminder, we're seeing over 550,000 times and reached over 165,000 unique Facebook users. So what that means of those 165,000, most people saw the ad multiple times. And we got 3,800 event responses of people that said they were interested or going, which, by the way, their friends can also see, like if they're going to go. So that kind of further adds to the marketing value of the idea here. So I've done some message tests before where we specifically target men and women, of people of different age. But in this ad, we partly want to see how the algorithm, which wants you to succeed, actually, because that's what their business depends on, is who they would deliver the ads to. So you can see that even though, women might, I think, have, pretty much half the population, I think a little bit more, but not much, is that 84% of the users who saw the ads were women. So that means that the algorithm is determining that, all things being equal, that women are more likely to click on the ads, which I'll share with you in a moment. And then also, I think everybody knows this, and the next campaign I'm going to show you uses Instagram. But for reaching people under 25, you got to move to a different platform for the most part. So these are I was going to ask you, what do you all think is going to win? But now you can see. So when we look at the event response rates by frame, and keep in mind here that we reached over 500,000 people. So you might ask yourself, what's the difference between, say, 2% and 3%? Well, it's actually a lot of people when you're talking, like over 500,000 people. So fun was pretty easily the top performing event response rate. So that means what percent that are seeing the ad or clicking on it. And then the lowest event response rate was sustainable food, which is kind of interesting because a lot of the farmers market social media sites that I see, that's a lot of what they're sharing is more about focused on the food when that doesn't appear to be performing the best. That's not to say just do one ad on fun and don't think about local farmers and food. I think there's room for all these different messages, but I think that our targeting was looking at all people, not just farmers market attendees, to see what ideas resonate the most. So local farmers was the second highest performing, and it had a response rate that was 23% higher than sustainable food and 20% higher than fresh and healthy food. So this gives you a sense that, you know, fun and local farmers perform best in this message test. I'll give you a little bit more information about that. So keep in mind that Facebook already delivered this to over 80% women. So of the women versus men who saw it, women were also 45% more likely to respond to the event than men. So that's interesting. The algorithm is feeding it more to women, and then proportionally, women are also clicking on the ad more, which is why the algorithm is probably delivering it more to women. Older people were generally more likely to respond than younger people. There wasn't big statistical significance there. And even when controlling for age and gender, fun is still the most effective frame when looking at not like your follower base, but like all the people in your community. So something to think about. And again, we will put an attribution on the slide, like Laura said. So I'm not going to get into the weeds here, but we'll share the details of this later on. So most of the markets, these are all the markets that we worked with here. And you can see that it's pretty consistent that the smaller town in Alaska, I'm probably going to mispronounce it, Matanuska, definitely had a higher, like 4.3%. And it might be that fewer people are advertising to the folks there. And Vermont, just in general, was lower, and they have a lot of farmers markets there. I'd be curious later during the discussion if people have any theories. But all that being said, when controlling for market, fun still performed all the other frames by 20%. This is one of our market sites. I actually have now presented to the Minnesota Farmers Market Association and the Wisconsin Farmers Market Association. But this is just showing what they're seeing as far as their growth when we were doing the paid ads. So this is one of the slides that they provided. But you reach a lot of extra people if you just put, like, you don't have to put in $5,000. We've been experimenting with some different work I'm doing for Hmong farmers. And just putting like $15 down can increase your reach by like 15-fold or something like that. It's really quite substantial. Oh, excuse me. So also, just to give you a sense, you might be like, well, how much does this cost? So we spent like $5,000. So you can see this is to get people to click on an ad to give them reminders about the farmers market. So some of you might be looking at that and go, that's pretty expensive. But you could also look at it from the standpoint of, like, if you get a new customer to come on a regular basis, you know, every farmer's market would have to decide on an individual basis of what's worth it. But I know in different fields, like, for instance, I have a family member that sells large enterprise software. It's worth $200 to get a new lead. Clearly, that's not the case for farmers markets here. But what I'm saying is there's some costs associated with it. And the other thing I just want to add too, that asking someone to sign up for a event reminder is a larger ask than, say, clicking to learn something more or liking a video, right? So generally speaking, the bigger the ask that you make of someone, the more expensive that action will be. So, so I will go on.
Do you want to pause and see if there's questions
Oh,
on
yeah.
that first part?
Yeah.
I think if you click there on the chat.
Chat. We're looking at your chat.
Kids activities.
We have all the comments, but I don't recall that specifically. Stars answering here, you can take over.
The illustrations, will they be shared?
Yes, the illustrations will be shared, like they're a part of the toolkit.
Combining fun and local
I
farmers.
like it.
We didn't do any combos.
Yeah, we don't, but it's a good idea.
Hi, guys. My name is Carolyn Helmke. I've decided to chime in. I'm in Ketchum, Idaho. And here in the Wood River Valley, we have 2 farmers markets. I have spent a lot of time trying to manage our Facebook and Instagram account. And I've actually found that I don't feel like paying money for boosts has helped that much because I feel like it works for a few posts and then it just seems to drop off. So I think I sort of feel like, that old expression, garbage in, garbage out, I feel like they extend it to more people, but I'm not sure that's the people we're trying to reach. So super interesting. I've also found there's just a huge difference between the ages and demographics of Facebook users versus Instagram. Instagram is the much more young people and much more just about pictures and quick notes, and Facebook has more of the sort of event function, and older people use it. Those are my findings, not data approved. No, nobody spent money on it but me.
Yeah, I guess,
Transition.
oh yeah, super transition. Yeah, the one thing I'd add to that is I actually do a lot of these. Wait, you're taking off? Okay. Let me clear this. I do a lot of tests. I'm an administrator on a lot of different accounts. And so again, I don't own stock in Facebook. That's not my interest here, but I noticed that it consistently makes a substantial difference in terms of reach and like who you're getting in front of. So obviously your experience is real and everyone should examine that. But I can definitely say that I consistently see across multiple contexts that it makes a pretty substantial difference. But I'm not devaluing your experience. I'm just saying what my observation has been. And actually it's kind of a good transition too, is that sometimes, and I don't know if you meant like in terms of like reactions or if you meant in terms of reach or what you felt like you weren't getting, and I'd be interested to talk about that more during the discussion because it's really interesting to me. But I also just wanted to talk about a second ad that we ran, and we ran a third one as well that I won't speak about today, which was that a lot of markets said they were interested in promoting the redemption of SNAP benefits at their markets. So in conducting this campaign, it was a lot, we weren't looking to get people to really click on anything. And so that's actually sort of interesting based on what you're saying. Like, what do we, as long as people know to come to the market, do we need them to like or do a happy emoji or that kind of thing? And we decided in this case, no. But there's all kinds of ways to do everything, but we assumed less of a need for engagement. And on this one, we did use both Instagram and Facebook. So you can do, control both from the same back end. And Carolyn is definitely correct that there's actually more overlap in what I've seen than you might think, but they're clearly on the young side. It's not reaching, Facebook does not reach them. That I can say for sure in my experience. And one of our promises in the USDA grant was to test different message frames, which I just shared with you. And the reason I'm sharing this with you is we use the same ad, but 3 different targeting strategies. So there, like it used to be back in the Wild West days, like 5, 6, 7 years ago, where you could do all kinds of things. And then lots of people were, I'd say, abusing the platform to do things like voter suppression and different unsavory things. So they set up more controls. So you can't, like, this might be a legitimate place where targeting low-income people might not be morally noxious, right? But you can't do it anymore because people would use it for bad purposes. So we used what we had available to us, which was like all adults, parents thinking that some families with kids, and we are also you are able to target people by zip codes. So you could look at like a zip code that has lower income, and basically what we're seeing is whether this worked, and the targeting strategies were not significant. And so part of the goal of this grant isn't to know everything, but to learn new things. It was a way to get out in front of lots of people. The ad was seen over 1.2 million times, reaching over 935,000 unique users. And the cost for 1,000 impressions was $3.50. So that here we're not looking for clicks. We're just looking at how many people are we getting in front of. And it was actually hard. It's something we're still working on in terms of measuring attendance or SNAP redemptions, that people have different systems and redemption, and we're still working on that. So I can't report on that here, but I did want to show you 2 social media campaigns that we did. I can pause there for a moment. I'll look at the chat. If someone could facilitate that. Yeah, I definitely agree on the sales. What we found is there's lots of challenges, like on sales, for example, that someone had one farmer's market has a special event the week before that brings lots of people in. The other market has a special event that pulls people away, and there's rainy days and all kinds of stuff. That's why we're trying to like sort it out. But I definitely agree that that is important. So some of the limitations of this work, of course, is like you can kind of work the algorithm to some degree, and I've played around with that. But at the end of the day, there's some black boxy elements that are just part of the deal. The survey of whether this works or is a snapshot in time. On the message framing tests, on the ad tests, other artistic renditions might have produced different results, and that's true on any campaign, right? It's not just about concepts, it's also about like artistic redemption. That said, a lot of people did provide positive feedback about the art, and we've developed not only this art here, but also additional art that we hope that your farmers market managers that you work with might be interested in using. And we could have stratified, but because Facebook delivered the ads to smaller numbers of young people and men, there might have been differences that were obscured by there just weren't enough people to detect statistically significant differences. And as I mentioned before, measuring actual attendance and revenue is something we're still working on, but it's clearly going to be challenging at best, and we're working on that. So what are the implications for promoting farmers markets in your service areas? One is this idea that farmers markets are fun and support local farmers, and at least in these tests here, appeal to Facebook users more than Fresh, Healthy, and Sustainable does, which is true not just in one state, but across the United States. Creating Facebook events, whether like I would suggest personally, and I would love to hear more about different people's experience, is that the event reminders I think we could debate about cost, but the idea of getting people to remember to attend the farmer's market is probably one worth exploring. And we did use Instagram for some of these, but again, TikTok, Instagram, there's other platforms that are more effective for reaching young people for sure than Facebook. So I can pause there for a moment. Doesn't look like is there any questions that I haven't addressed that we should pause for a moment? Because I can keep going. All right. Well, we should have time at the end as well. So I'm going to quick give you a preview of the Farmers Market Toolkit, which is still in development. So this is just an idea of what's to come. So one is we have a variety of peer-reviewed studies still on the way. That's not part of the toolkit per se, but it will provide additional insights that will inform the toolkit. Like, for example, there's not, like if you think about different lifestyle groups, for example, or audience segments, there's different types of people that go to the farmers market for different reasons. So we have a publication that'll be coming out. Some people are more health conscious. Some people are more likely to be foodies. Some people might have more traditional tastes and they just like feeling more connected to their food system. So we have more insights coming out about that. We have more research coming out about how farmers markets support civic engagement. And we're going to also be publishing up some of these social media results. We have a variety of webinars. In fact, one of them you're on right now, which is to get the word out, not just to farmers market managers, like we presented a couple of weeks ago at a national conference for, pardon my stuttering, in tents in San Diego, which targets farmers market managers. So we're basically trying to reach food systems professionals, extension colleagues, like I'm sure a lot of people on this call are, and also farmers market managers. And then I'll give you a couple ideas on this farmers market communication toolkit. So we have a lot of different actionable marketing tips, like for instance, how to get people to spend more I'm at the market. So like, as one example, in knowing your audience better, like one of the things that our survey enabled is, how do we get younger people to attend and spend more at markets? Because, do people age into markets, or can we get more young people to be spending at the markets? But you could see here from our survey data that they're more interested in some of the convenience options. So this is an example of some kind of actionable insight that could help to attract some younger audiences. As far as this, we actually did a vote at the Intense conference where we asked people, is it most important for you to reach, existing customers, new customers, stakeholders, or vendors? And I was surprised, but the largest audience, not by far, but was stakeholder groups. And so some of what we're going to provide is a post that help farmers market managers, operators, food systems professionals, talk about how 75% report I'm eating healthier. And some of the market manager, they're trying to make partnerships with like local health systems, for example. That's good data. Or if you're trying to work with like a corporation for business wellness, some people mentioned giving out $25 certificates at the market. It's good for the market. It's good for employees. Community building. It's very clear that farmers market are a part of community building and civic engagement, with nearly half connecting with other people in the community. And also from like a business standpoint, Chamber of Commerce standpoint, that, Laura felt like this 49% and 42% weren't as high as she might like to see. But I would say if 49% and 42% are shopping more at local business and restaurants, I think that can add up to quite a bit of money. So, and so what might this look like, for example? I think I might have these slides out of order. I'll just keep going. So like in terms of targeting, some of the insights that we're hoping that you might walk away with, or that people that use the toolkit might walk away with, is, like, hey, we want to reach more young people. Okay, well, they appear to have fun, more resonant with them. Do you get live music? I mean, it depends on the market. What platform would you use? Like, clearly, I've seen this over and over. You're not going to reach people under 25 much with Facebook. Use Instagram or TikTok, and then offering different kinds of ads or ideas for ads or organic posts that can work for that audience. Oh, I lost a couple things that I put together. Well, I'll just keep going with it. So what's more to come is, so some of the things that we heard from farmers market managers is like they wanted people profiled, like who are higher spenders? What are young people thinking? What are older people thinking? What are Latinos thinking? So we'll be doing more like understanding different audience segments better to appeal more to them. Understanding in a more granular way the motivations and barriers, selling the value of the market to stakeholders, and a step-by-step social media marketing guide. We're actually working to create a webinar and archival video. There's tons of videos out there that that talk about like how to do social media ads, but we're going to create one that's using examples that will highly resonate with farmers market managers, so that the geo-targeting, the different features will make sense because we're going to use examples that speak to them. The free professionally designed graphics and more on how to evaluate markets. And by the way, I thought we only had one slide deck, because I added some of the graphics before this talk about, which shows how we're kind of operationalizing this, but I don't see them as in here. So that's the end. I could share screen and show you something else, but I think we're getting pretty close to 11:53. So maybe we should just open up to questions, or yeah, why don't we, Adar, do you want to add anything that I maybe didn't cover?
No, I think you did great. I think let's maybe see if there are questions and mind the chat. Yeah, it's great.
Oh, it's me again. Sorry, I'm that kid who always sat in front of the class and raised their hand. We use a MailChimp newsletter, And that has been so effective for us. We have 1,500 subscribers, which for this valley is huge. We barely get unsubscribes. We have a 50% open rate every week, and we keep it very short. We don't send extraneous things about, hey, happy, 4th of July or something. It's a weekly newsletter. It's very clear on what the highlights are. And I just heavily advise it. That has been how we get our kind of people, meaning people who come to the market and it's not as fleeting. So that's my advice.
There was a excellent talk at that conference I went to a few weeks ago, and she was also saying the same thing, that it's like a really fabulous way, and you own the list, that you can actually compare different messages if you want to see which ones open up. Well, so I want to be clear, I'm not selling social media at the exclusion of other effective strategies. We're just sharing the data information that we collected. So I think the email list, from what I've heard, is a fabulous idea also.
Hello, I'm Liz Urquhart, and I'm in Greensboro, North Carolina, where our farmers market has been in continuous operation for 150 years.
Wow.
We're very proud of that. But we are seeing a drop off in traffic due to competing farmers markets and then local supermarkets that claim to be organic and fresh food, although they're still getting a lot of food off of trucks, big transfer trucks from somewhere. We have researched doing direct text opt-in messages. So what we're trying to do is reach young people quicker. They really don't go to Facebook very much anymore. We're not using Instagram actively, but I just want to share that there are vendors out there that will work with you to, if you can get people to opt in, you can send out reminders, say on Thursday night right before Saturday, promote events, and try to build more interest among young people that way.
One thing I like about that idea is that for social media, you have to be scrolling on it, and like in order to see it. But if someone signed into a text, and remembering is one of the challenges, it's like, you just get something interesting about the market, it's going on right now or tomorrow. But that's a cool idea too.
Looks like there's a question from Tim in the chat. Would you suggest doing an A/B test concept for farm market patrons? Sorry.
Right.
Go ahead.
Yeah, for reaching younger patrons, it's actually the same setup. As an academic who wants to publish some of this, like I have to avoid certain messiness that I might care less about as a marketer. So the truth is you can manage both of them. Like, for instance, I just ran a campaign for a survey I'm doing on ice fishing safety, of all things. But like, I just did ads to both at the same time. But I can just say, like, triple echoing what was said earlier, that you have to use Instagram below 25. I actually see more overlap than some people think, but on the low end, Instagram is not, low end of age. I have not seen Instagram or Facebook work well at all. And I'm not familiar with like TikTok and stuff. I mostly advertise, but what I a lot of times do just ensure is I control the back end for both. But I do see younger people clearly more on Instagram. And so that's where I would do the message test. So it looks like the questions might be about done, but I would encourage you to look at the paper that Laura sent. Like I said, we're going to be working, or we are working on a communications toolkit. And I think Adar has, access to many lists, and we have many super partners like the network here. So you'll be learning about it when it's available or updated. And I would encourage you to follow up with Adar or Laura or myself if you have any questions, to go look at that article. And Adar, and you want to add anything before it looks like we're about?
Could you guys express helpful insights into helping overcome the issue of people feeling it's too expensive to shop at farmers markets?
Adar, I mean, I have some thoughts, but do you want to take a first?
Well, I mean, first, let's talk about what the survey said about that. Was that a high in terms of responses on that question?
Yes, it was one of the barriers to attendance. I mean, some people also thought they were saving money, so it went both directions. Right. But in terms of barriers, that was one of the top 5.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think markets that have done successful promotions of that around that issue have really started to identify the way that local food systems are different than industrial food systems, meaning fruits and veg in season tend to be, especially in a competitive environment like a farmer's market, when we do price comparisons around the country of seasonal items like produce, especially that are farmers markets and low end and high end and middle grocery stores, markets are very much in competition in terms of price, and quality, of course, is just, really almost always. So a lot of it is an assumption, and a lot of it's based on value added, of course, because value added is very expensive at farmers markets for lots of reasons. So I think it's we find that when markets do this well, it's an educational component. I will say that in my, 30 years of doing farmers markets, I've heard that issue a lot less than I forget when it is. I think, this survey is exactly but I think there's ways to build a data-driven message around the price comparison. And of course, there's a few of those, not as many as there should be, but great to see more of those kind of price comparisons, data-driven messaging.
Well, thank you everyone for attending. And we hope that this is not the end, but the start. We have a toolkit coming. We hope that people can leverage the insights from our survey for years to come. Adar, do you have access to the article? Because I have my second screen full up. Someone's asking.
No, I don't have it with me. I'm sorry.
I can grab it. I'll just put it in real quick. I don't know if you can hold on. Second. Okay, put it in the chat right now if you all want to click on it and save it for later. So yeah, there's lots of insights in there. We couldn't even begin to get into all that nuance, but we'd love to share with you all, next year or something when a toolkit's more complete and more of our analyses are complete. But otherwise, I thank everyone for coming, Katie for hosting us, and grateful for your time and attention.
Thank you very much.
Very much. Yeah.
All right.
Everybody, have a good day.
Thank you, everybody.